All right, in this demo, I'm going to use the AWS command line interface to deploy my resources. I'm also going to use the AWS console to verify that my commands on my CLI takes effect properly. So here's what's going to happen. Let's look at the network diagram to see what I'll be working with. All right, so here is a simple network diagram. This demo is going to take place in the US West 1 California region. And as the title says, this is about testing out the functionality of the Egress Internet Gateway. So for VPCA, I'm going to use the AWS command line interface to create my VPC, and then I'll create all of the resources associated with that VPC, along with the internet gateway, the route table, the subnet, the security group, key pair, and then I'll launch an EC2 instance. And then as I deploy my resources, I'll record in here the resource ID, and I'm going to populate this table as I go along. And then for VPCB, I'm going to use the AWS console to deploy my resources similarly to VPCA. And ultimately, what's going to happen is I'm going to test IPv4 and IPv6 pingability from the EC2 in VPCB pinging to the public IP of the EC2 in VPCA. And then I'll do the same thing, testing the IPv6 pingability from VPCB to VPCA, EC2. And then I'm going to deploy a egress-only internet gateway, and that should only allow IPv6 traffic outbound. And we're going to test that out as we go. So I'm going to get rid of this for now. And so let's take a look at the let's take a look closer here at this network diagram really quick. So VPCA is going to have the 10.0/24 CIDR, and then I'm going to use the Amazon assigned IPv6 address block for that VPC. I will create my subnet, a /27, in the US West 1A availability zone. And then that subnet is also going to have a IPv6 address block. For the security group, I'm going to allow ICMP v4, v6, and also SSH v4 and v6 into the EC2 from the outside world. And then similarly for VPCB, I'm going to create similar resources. The address block is going to be different. And then I'm just going to test pingability between the two public IP addresses of the EC2 instances, and then test the IPv6 addresses between the two instances, and then see how that behaves. I'm going to now take a look at the AWS console, the GUI. And here we can see that there is no VPC existing. This is the default VPC that Amazon provides, but there is no VPC that is already created by me. Same thing, all the route table is empty. Everything here is blank slate. And so I can go ahead and go into my CLI, and let's get started. For the CLI, I'm going to use the terminal visual code, and to verify that I'm in the correct environment, and my profile is set up, I'm going to issue AWS configure list. All right, so I am using my correct profile. I am in the US West 1 region, and let's go ahead and configure my VPC A. AWS create, AWS EC2 create VPC, and CIDR. Oh, by the way, guys, in this tutorial, in this demo, I'm assuming that you do have the latest version of the CLI, and also you have installed the AWS CLI autocomplete. The autocomplete allows you to tab out your next option to choose what you want to type in. So basically from here, I can hit tab it out, and these are my next ones. For example, if I choose endpoint URL, if I type in endpoint URL, I tab it out, I hit tab again, and now I have to put in something. But tabbing it out allows you to see what's available as the next possible options. All right, so in this scenario, I'm going to use the CIDR block, and it's going to be 10.0.0.0/24. And my VPC ID is created, so I'm going to copy that, go into my network diagram, and I'm going to paste that in here because I'm going to need that later. And then now let's go ahead and check our VPC and see if it's created for us. There's nothing here, so let me hit refresh, and there it is. So it doesn't have a name, so I'm gonna need to create tags for it, for that VPC. So AWS EC2 create tags, right? I'm gonna say resources, because that's my options right here, resources. Now I gotta put in my resource, which is my VPC ID. And then what are my options now? If I tab it out, AWS EC2 create tags, resources, VPC ID, tags, and then I say name, key equals name, and value equals, I'm going to call it VPC-A. Okay, so let's look at the console. If I hit refresh, and there's my name right there. Okay, so next is I need to create an internet gateway and then associate that, attach that to the VPC, right? So now I need to create this guy here and then attach it to the VPC. Oh, one other thing I forgot to do is associate the IPv6 CIDR block for the VPC-A. So let me go ahead and do that. AWS EC2 associate VPC CIDR block, and then for this one I'm going to choose the Amazon provided IPv6 CIDR block. Copy, paste, and then my VPC ID, which happens to be this guy. So before I hit enter, let's look at the console real quick. If I click on my VPC here, you can see that there is no IPv6 CIDR. So let's go ahead and hit enter for it to take our command. Okay, so that's done. If I go back to the console and if I hit refresh for this VPC-A, and now we have this assigned. So I'm going to copy this into my network diagram. Here it is here. All right, so that's the assigned IPv6 CIDR block that Amazon assigned for me, for my VPC. Next, I need to create an internet gateway. So let's go ahead and do that. Back to the CLI, AWS EC2, create internet gateway, enter. There it is, my internet gateway resource ID is this guy. I'm going to copy that, paste it into my network diagram table right there. And then now I got to associate that or attach that to my VPC. So go back to the command line, AWS EC2, attach Internet Network Gateway ID to my VPC ID, which happens to be this one. Go back here, boom, enter. All right, let's go back to the console, and if we look at the Internet Gateway, we can see now that it says attached to VPC-A, but it doesn't have a common name, so let's give it a tag. And I'm going to do that. AWS EC2, create tags, resources, the IGW resource ID, right? Tags, and then I'll say key equals name, comma value equals, what do I want to call it? VPCA-IGW. All right, let's check it in our console, refresh. And there it is. Okay, great. So that's done, and that looks good. Next step, create a route table for our VPC. So let's go ahead and do that. AWS EC2, create route table, and then we want to say for what VPC? For VPC ID of VPC-A. Enter. Okay, there's my route table created for my VPC-A. Here's the route table resource ID. I'm going to copy that, paste it into my table here. All right, so let's take a look at the route table. Route tables. So when it says main, that's the one that I created. Yes, we're the ones that are provided by default by AWS, but this is the one that I created. And so it needs a name, so I'm going to give it a name. Again, we're going to say AWS EC2, create tags. AWS EC2, create tags, right? And then create tags, and then I'll say resources, and then what is my route table ID? Here it is. Tags, and then for that I'm going to say key equals name, value equals, what do I want to call it? Value equals VPCA-RT1. All right, go back here. Okay, that looks good. Oh, let me turn on my light, guys, so we can have a better brightness here. All right, I'm back with the light on. Okay, so I created my tag for the route table. Let's take a look at that. Here's a route table. If I hit refresh, there's a route table name, so that's good to go. Okay, so now I need to create a subnet. I need to create a subnet. So the subnet I'm going to create is going to be assigned with the /27 address space, and it's going to need a /64 for the IPv6 address, and this is going to take place in the US West 1A AZ. So let's go ahead and do that. AWS EC2, create subnet VPC ID of and then also we need availability zone US-West-1A. To find out what availability zones there are, you can say AWS EC2 describe availability zones. And then for US West 1, you have 1A and you have 1C. All right, so that's how you check that. So I'm going to say US West 1, and then also I'm going to need to say CIDR block. This is where I put my 10.00/27. So CIDR block 10.0.0.0/27. Any other options that I need? Taking a look here. IPv6 CIDR block also. IPv6 CIDR block. Okay, so for this one, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my big block, paste it in here. I'm going to change this to a 64. I'm going to change this into 01, and I think that should do it. All right, that's done. That's created for us. Okay, so there's our 10.0.027 in the 1A AZ. So let's take a look at that on the console. Subnets. I'm going to open up a new tab actually. I'll do this here. I'll go subnets. Oops, this is the old one. Let me just refresh this. Okay, so here's a subnet. Here you go. Subnet, this is the one I just created. You can see it's 10.0.0.0/27. Here's our /64 IPv6 address. Okay, it doesn't have a name, so we got to give it a tag. And let's go ahead and give it a tag. AWS EC2 create tags resources. My subnet ID, which I also need to copy into my table. Tags. Key equals name. Value equals, what do I want to call it? I want to call it the VPCA public subnet 1. All right, let's take a look at that. Actually, let me copy the subnet ID in here real quick. All right, so that's done. So let's take a look at the subnet in the console. Refresh. There's our name. If I click on it, so let's take a look at this. So we got our IPv6. We have our /27. You see where it says auto assign public IPv4 address is no, and also auto assign IPv6 address is no. Okay, we need to have that say yes, because when we launch our EC2 instance, in the AZ, we want that EC2 instance to obtain a public IPv4 and an IPv6 address. So that way we can test pinging and SSH to it. So to do that, we got to go into our command line and add a few things. AWS EC2 modify subnet attribute, and then what are our choices? Subnet ID is what we need. First of all, subnet ID here. Back into CLI, paste. Okay, so then for this one, we say map public IP on launch. That's what we say. Map-public IP on launch. Enter. Okay, let's check the console. So this is going to change if I refresh this. Okay, it's now yes. But we still need the v6 address to say yes, right? Because we need the EC2 to acquire an IPv6 address. So again, we go here, AWS EC2. I'll just copy this line. Subnet ID. Options. Assign IPv6 on creation. It doesn't say assign, it says no, but if you read the documentation, you know that you need to put assign. So just go ahead and copy that and hit paste. And then hit enter. And then now let's go back into here and let's refresh this. Okay, great. So now the subnet will assign a public IPv4 address and the subnet will assign an IPv6 address when we launch our EC2 instance in that subnet. So that's done. The route table is created. Now we need to associate the subnet to the route table. So let's take a look at the route table. This is the route table. Subnet association. So right now we have one available subnet, the /27, but it's not associated to any route table. And in order for us to get internet access to our EC2 and for our EC2 to be able to get out to the internet, we need to associate this subnet to our route table. So let's do that in the command line. AWS EC2 associate subnet CIDR block 10.0.0 subnet CIDR block subnet ID of this guy to the associate CIDR block. No, we need to associate the subnet to the route table. Associate route table, and then route table ID of to the subnet ID enter. There is associated. So let's take a look now at our GUI. So if I hit refresh, this should now populate with this, because before we didn't have the /27 associated to the route table. But if I hit refresh now, subnet association, and there it is. It's now associated. So let's take a look at our routes. So right now, we don't have a default route out to the internet gateway for our /20 for our IPv4 and for our IPv6. So we need to add a route for that and point it to the internet gateway. So basically here, this diagram here says for any traffic in this AZ that needs to get out to the IPv4 address outbound, it needs to use the internet gateway. And the same thing here. It needs to use the IGW for the v6 packets. So let's go ahead and add that in. AWS EC2 create route. Create route, and then we need to tell it to use what route table. Route table ID. Go back here. And then here we say destination CIDR of 0.0.0.0/0. Point it to our gateway ID. Of this one. Enter. True. Let's look at it on the console. If we hit routes, and if I hit refresh, now we have a 00 route pointing to the gateway, internet gateway. So we need to add an IPv6 default route also. Go back to the console, basically the same thing. Here we say destination IPv6 CIDR block ::/0. There it is. Let's check it here. Go into refresh. All right, here's our default route for v6 packets, pointing to the same internet gateway. All right, that looks good. And so now we're done there. Next is we got to create a security group. So let's go ahead and do that. The security group will allow v4, v6 ICMP and v4, v6 SSH. All right, to our EC2 instance. So let's go ahead and create that. AWS EC2 authorize security group. No, create security group first, and then you authorize. Create dash security group. What are my options here? VPC ID. I'll need to assign it to what VPC ID of. And then I need a group name, and it's going to be called VPCA-SG. And then I also need a that's it. Let's hit enter, see what happens. Oh, I need a description. Okay. Description, access to EC2. Enter. Okay, there's my security group. Resource ID is this. Let's take a look at our console. Security group. There it is. That's security group there. And there's our description. Right now there's no rules. So if I click on that, I need to give it a common name. I don't have to, but it'd be nice to keep it in the same. I'm going to use the same name as this. Actually, let's look at here. What do I call it? Okay, let's do this. So go back to the console. Let's create a tag for it. AWS EC2, create tags, resources. My security group ID actually is this. And then tags, key equals name, value equals, what was it? Apple C, boom, done. Let's check it out. And there it is. We got a name there. Okay, great. Inbound rules. Right now there's no inbound rules, so we need to create inbound rules for this. And for inbound rules, we need to allow SSH, v4 and v6, and pings v4 and v6. So we'll do the SSH first. So here we go. AWS EC2, authorize, security group, authorize security group. Actually, let me clear this so we can see this a little better. All right, from the top. AWS EC2, authorize security group, ingress is what we want. Group ID is our security group ID. And here we say protocol. Protocol TCP port 22 CIDR 0.0.0.0/0. So this says allow SSH IPv4 style from anywhere. All right, so that's our security group rule. So let's give it a tag. So we say AWS EC2 create tags, and then we say resources. And then here's our resource ID. All right, and then now we need to say tags. Key equals name, value equals allow IPv4 SSH. Enter. Let's take a look at the rule. Inbound rule. Hit refresh, and there it is, allow IPv4 SSH. Sourcing from anywhere. Okay, so now we need to allow IPv6 SSH. Back to the console. AWS EC2, authorize, security group ingress, security group ID, okay, so for v6, this is going to be a little different. We say IP permissions, IP protocol equals TCP, comma, from port equals 22, comma, to port equals 22, comma, IP ranges equals Okay, here's where it gets a little tricky here. You got to do some brackets, and then you have to specify the CIDR. Curly bracket here, and then CIDR IP equals 0.0.0.0/ Oh, we're doing V6. So for V6, let's start over from port 22, comma, to port equals 22, comma, IPv6 ranges equals apostrophe bracket, open bracket, curly bracket, CIDR IPv6 equals :/0, close curly bracket, close bracket, and close apostrophe. And now we have that set up for us. And if we need to create a tag for this, AWS EC2 create tags, resources, tags, key equals name, value equals allow IPv6 SSH. All right, let's take a look at our security rule here. Refresh. Refresh. Oh, it didn't take the name. Wonder why it didn't take the name. Oh, it was just create tags, resources, boom, boom. Oh, I call it this instead. Oops. Okay, so no worries. Let's go ahead and rename this first. SGR is what I need. SGR. All right, so that should take that. Refresh here. Okay, I'm gonna have to change that later, but let's take a look at this. Okay, allow SSH. Now, for the security group itself, I need to modify this back to being this guy. Not a big deal. Let's go ahead and do that. Boom, done. Let's go back into the console and let's take a look. Refresh. There it is. That's done. If I click on that, that's done. So now we got IPv4 and v6 SSH defined, sourcing from anywhere. All right, so next we got to do ICMP, all ICMP ports from anywhere. So let's go ahead and do that in our console, in our CLI. AWS EC2 create authorize security group ingress, and we say group ID is here we say IP permissions, IP protocol equals ICMP, comma, from port equals -1, comma, to port equals -1. Let me turn off the camera so you guys can see the whole command here. So from -1 to -1 means all ports, all ICMP ports. So there, after that, I say comma IP ranges equals, our syntax here has to be correct, bracket, curly bracket, cider IP equals 0.0.0.0/0, close the bracket, curly bracket, close the regular bracket, and apostrophe. Did that take it? Yes, that take it. Let's give it a resource ID name, tag, I mean. So we say AWS EC2 create tags. And then for the tags, I'm going to use resources. This is the resource ID here for the security group rule. And then I'll say key equals name, value equals allow, IPv4, ICMP. Oops, I forgot the word tags. Resources, and then tags. See, it gives you a little hint here of where you did wrong. So, okay, that should take it. Let's go back to the console here and hit refresh. And there it is, IPv4 ICMP. Allow from anywhere. Perfect. Okay, so that's that. Let's go back to the console. Put my camera back on real quick. Here's the console. Let me clear this out. Okay, now we need to add ICMP for v6 traffic sourcing from any IPv6 address. So we say AWS EC2, authorize security group, ingress, group ID of and then here you say IP permissions space IP protocol equals ICMP v6, comma, from port equals -1, comma, to port equals -1, comma, IP v6 ranges equals bracket, curly bracket, cider IPv6 equals ::/0, curly bracket, regular bracket close, and then that should take it. There it is. It's allowing ICMP v6, all ICMP v6 ports from any IPv6 source IP. So let's take a look at, we got to create tags for it. AWS EC2, create tags, and then you say resources. You wanted to add your security group rule as your resource ID, tags, key equals name, value equals allow IPv6 ICMP, enter. All right, let's take a look at our security group now in the console, and hopefully it should show up nice and proper. And there it is. Let me just get rid of the camera here. All right, that looks pretty good. Refresh. Let's put this in order. Okay, great. So also you can view your camera back on. You can view your security group here like so in a table format. AWS EC2 describe security group rules. How about security group and then group ID, which is this one. So if I hit enter now, it's going to give me the output of my security group and all of its rules in a JSON format. Nice and detailed there with my description and my rules. And I can also do that what was that? Security group ID 98A9. I can also do that using output YAML format. It's a nicer, cleaner look here. So here's your group ID. Right. Okay, or you can say output table for a cleaner look. All right, quit to get out of there. So that's one way to view it. The easiest way to view it is this, actually, but if you want to get used to using the CLI, you can do this. Okay, so we got our security group already defined. Everything looks good. Next step, creating a key pair. So for key pair, duplicate tab. For key pair, I need to create a key pair because there's none existing right now. So let's go ahead and do that. AWS EC2 create key pair, key name. I'm going to call it EC2-key pair. And then now I'm going to say query the key material. I want to see the key material, but I want it output in a text format and send it to a file in my downloads current directory in my downloads file called ec2-key pair.pem. Okay, so ls-la sar.pem. So there's my key pair downloaded in my downloads folder because that's where I'm at now. And I need to change the permissions so then I can use it to SSH to my EC2 instance. So AWL, so we'll go gmod 400 ec2-keypair.pem, and then let's check the permissions again. Okay, so I should have access now. So that's the key pair that's created. Let's look at the console, refresh, and there's the key pair. So the next thing I need to do is launch an EC2 instance and give it a name in my VPC in my US West 1A subnet. So that way it can acquire a public IPv4 and it can acquire a IPv6 address. So that'll allow us to SSH and ping the EC2 from the outside world. So let's go ahead and do that. AWS EC2 run instances. Image ID. How do I know which image ID I need? Go back to the console, and in here you look at the AMI catalog. You can see here, this is the one that I'm going to use. Here's all your other options, but this one is the free tier eligible, and it's got Linux and it's 64 bits, and it's what I need. So I'm going to use that one. And then I need to say instance type, which is a T2 micro. And then I also need to say subnet ID. I need to put it into this subnet, which happens to be this subnet ID. Copy that. And then I need to assign it a key pair. Subnet ID. And then give it a key name. Let me get rid of the camera so you guys can see the whole screen. Key name is EC2-key pair. What else do I need? I need to I think that's it. I think that's it. So let's go ahead and just hit enter. All right, so that's the created for us right there. Here's our EC2 instance ID. I'm going to copy this in here. All right, so let's take a look at our instance. Instances, so that's it right there. Let's give it a name. Let's create a tag for it. Here's more information for it here. We got our IPv6 address. That's perfect. And we should have our IPv4 address, public address somewhere. Let's give it a name first. AWS EC2 create tags. Resources, instance ID, tags, key equals name, value equals, what do I want to call it? VPCA-EC2. VPCA-EC2. Enter. Okay, let's look at the console. Refresh. There it is. If I click on this, get the networking tab. Here's my public IPv4, and here is my IPv6 address, and I am in the US West 1A zone. So let's take a look at this here. Here's where to create our instance for us, our AMI. Security group. Funny, I can't see the public IP address. AWS EC2 describe instances. Describe instances. Instance ID. Output table. All right, so this is a cleaner way of looking at it. T2 micro, instance ID, AMI, everything looks good here. Here's my IPv4, public IPv4 address. And what else? What else? Yeah, a lot of information here. MAC addresses, VPC associated, subnet. It's currently in use and it's attached. Everything looks good. So let's look at the IPv4 public. I keep screws. There it is. Let's see if we can ping it. Ping. Huh. Is the subnet associated? I think it was. Since I refresh. Go back. Ping. Okay, it's not pinging. Let me see what's going on here. Let's look at our route table real quick here. Route table. Routes. Edit route. Okay, so there's no default IPv4 and IPv6. Is that the deal? Okay, so let's add that. Refresh. Oh, it's there. It's there. Okay. It's there, and it's pointing to the Internet Gateway. Okay, how about the subnets? This subnet. Route table. RT1 looks good. Subnets. Refresh. All right, I think I know what the deal is. I think I need to check my security group, make sure it's belongs to the right security group. Because if I can't ping it, that might be the problem. Security. So it belongs to the default security group, not the one that I created. So I need to modify that. Security. Change security groups. And I could just do it here. That's the one I want. Save. Remove this guy. Save this guy. Oops. You have to select at least one security group. I did. Cancel. All right, let's do that again. Security, change security groups. Let's remove it from the default security group. Save, and then let's add this one. Save. All right, so now if I go back to this guy, there we go. I should be able to ping. All right, so I should be able to ping now. And how about the IPv6? Ping 6. Let's grab the IPv6 address of that instance. Where's our IPv6 address? There it is. Go back into the CLI. Okay, pingable as well. All right, so now let's SSH into it. SSH minus I EC2 dash key pair, and then EC2 dash user at the public IP. Yes. All right. And then let's get out of there, and then let's go ahead and do the IPv6. I should be able to access the server as well. Yes. Okay, done. All right, so initially I couldn't ping it because when I added the EC2 instance, let's see if I can pull it up here. When I added the EC2 instance via the command line, I didn't specify which security group to deploy the EC2 instance in, and so it chose the default security group, and that was the problem. So now that that's resolved, I think we're done with the VPC-A. Everything looks good there. We can ping v4 and v6 to it from the outside world. Now let's go ahead and create VPC-B and its components, and then the EC2 for it. So for VPC-B, we're going to go a little faster. I'm going to use the AWS console for that, and then let's just get started. All right, so VPC, let's go back. VPC here. So right now I need to create a VPC, and I'm going to call it VPC-B. Ooh, that's not good. VPC-B. CIDR block 11.0.0.0/24. Amazon provided IPv6, and just hit create VPC. So that's done. And what was the VPC ID? So I can just paste it in here just so that I can have it. All right, I need to create an internet gateway for VPC-B. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to call it and create gateway, attach to VPC. I'm going to choose VPC-B, attach gateway. Done. So this table allows me to kind of use it as a check mark, so that when I'm done, I move on to the next step. Route table, I got to create a route table, and I'm going to call it VPC-B, name, everything's done there, great. And then now I know that I need to create a subnet. Right, create subnet here, and it's going to be for VPC-B, and the subnet name is going to be this guy. AZ, I'm going to choose AZ1C. Manual IPv4, CIDR, I'm going to choose 11.0.0.0/27. Oh, I didn't choose the IPv6 for my other guy. So, oops, I got to go back, guys. I got to go back to my VPC-B, and then assign a v6 address. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's there. So let me just go ahead and copy this one here. Okay, so since I'm already here, let me just copy the route table ID. Actually, route table ID. Back to my map. Okay, subnet. Now I need to create a subnet. Console, subnet, create subnet, select VPC-B, and I'm going to call it VPC-B pub sub 1. Go back here, paste. Zone is going to be West 1C. CIDR for the subnet 000/27. Okay. For IPv6, I'm going to choose that, but then I'm going to say 01, and then here I'm going to say 64. All right, create. All right, subnet is created for me, and it's got the name And now I need to associate that subnet with the route table. So subnet association, edit subnet association, choose this, and then hit save association. And then there it is, it shows up. Okay, now I got to create routes for this route table. I need a default route for IPv4 and a default route for IPv6. So let's do that, add routes. Add route here, 00 to my internet gateway in VPC-B. Add another one for v6 traffic, internet gateway for VPC-B. Save changes. And what does that do? Let's look at the network diagram. So again, we're adding default routes for our subnet here. It goes out this way for v4 and v6. And I want to add some stuff to my diagram. What are my subnets here? Where's my v6 address? Oh, that's the other thing I got to do is assign v4 and assign v6 address to this. All right, so let me do that. But first, I need to add this in here. All right, that looks clean. I didn't do it for the top one, but anyways, go back here. All right, so actions, edit, subnet settings, assign IPv6 and assign IPv4, hit save. All right, and so now auto assign v4 and auto assign v6. We're good to go there. All right, so security group. Now I got to add a security group for my for my AC2. So let's go ahead and do that. Security group. We are going to do that here. Create security group. We're going to call it what? Let's go back and add the subnet ID just to make everything clean again. Just for the housekeeping purposes, refresh. Subnet ID. Go back here. All right, security group. Now I need to create a security group. So let's create a security group. Create security group. Boom. What? Give it a name. Give it a description. VPC-B. And for this one, we're going to use SSH from anywhere, IPv4, and then, oh, that's outbound. Outbound, all traffic. Let's just delete. Let's go back, actually. Let's just go back, start fresh. Create security group, inbound. Give it a name there. Choose our VPC-B. And for inbound, we're going to add a rule. We're going to add SSH from anywhere. Add SSH. IPv6 anywhere. Add ICMP, all ports from anywhere. And then add all ICMP, v6 from any v6. Create. Okay, great. So that's done. And here is our security group ID. I can add that in here. Okay, great. Now, key pair is already created. And so the key pair, we can use it for the same VPC-B and VPC-A. EC2, let's launch one for the VPC-B environment. instance. Instances. So that's for VPC-A. Let's create one for VPC-B. Okay, so this is the default AMI, T micro, T2 micro. Key pair, I'm going to use EC2 key pair. Network settings, I want to use VPC-B. And then subnet 1C is already chosen for me, so great. Enable IPv4 assign is already chosen for me because that was set in the subnet settings. And then select existing security group. I want to choose VPC-B security group. And everything else is good. Let's go ahead and hit launch. Okay, launched. Let's take a look at this. Refresh. It's running. Here's our VPC-B EC2. If I click on that, I get more info. Here's the public IP address. I should be able to ping it. It's pingable on v4. And v6 wise. Okay, that's pingable as well. So that's good to go. So now, so what we want to say is, we want to ask ourselves, if I'm in VPC-B EC2, oh, we got to get in there first. So let me get in there. SSH -I EC2 dash key pair. Ooh. Wait. This is, let me just, this is VPC EC2 in VPC-A. So let me just get out of here because I want to use this terminal tab for the main configuration. For VPC-A, I want to get into VPC-A EC2. So SSH -I EC2 dash key pair PEM EC2 dash user at, what is the IPv4 address for VPC-A? And that's what I want to use, is get in here, go back to my terminal. Okay, so this is my EC2 in my VPC-A. Now I want to go into my VPC2 in my VPC-B, SSH -I EC2-user PEM EC2-user at the public IP address of my instance. You know, I don't like that actually. Instance. All states running. Okay, so here we go. My VPC-B, if I click on this, it gives me info here to grab the IPv4 address public and go back to my command line. Yes. All right, I am in the VPC-B EC2. Okay, so what's my IPv6 address? IP-6 adder. And what's my IP address over here on the EC2 VPC-A? IP, let me just do it clear actually. Okay, IP-6 adder. Okay, so now from VPC-B, I want to ping VPC-A IPv6 traffic. Let's go ahead and do that. Ping 6, boom. It's pinging. That's great, it's pinging. All right, so now what I want to do is go into here, remove my v6 route. Actually, what I want to do is add an egress-only internet gateway for VPC-A. So let's do that from the command line interface. That'll be fun. Here we go. AWS EC2, create egress, and then VPC ID. What is the VPC ID? I want to associate that with that one there. Go back here. Okay, so that's my EIGW created for VPC A. And so with the egress, you don't have to manually say attach it to the VPC. It should have done it automatically. And we can verify that. Let's go back into the GUI here and look at the VPC and egress only. And there it is. And like anything else, let's give it a name via the command line interface. I'm going to call it this right here. So AWS EC2 create tags, resources, and then my resource ID, tags, key equals name, value equals, what do I want to call it? This one. Go back. Boom. Done. Verify, refresh. It's good to go. Okay, so let's look at our route table. Currently, our route for VPC-A shows that all IPv6 traffic is pointing to the Internet Gateway, the normal, regular Internet Network Gateway, right here, this guy. But I just added this right here. And you know, this arrow should really only have one direction. And let's add that arrow. A one direction arrow should be pointing here. And that should be V6. So it should be that, but I need to remove the V6 traffic from the normal Internet Gateway and then associate that with the EIGW. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I like to color this text, say red, apply. So that way we know it stands out. Okay, great. So that's that. And so now let's go back into the console and let's look at our routes. So right now this is the way it looks. And I want to remove this and add it to the EIGW. So let's go ahead and do that from the command line interface. So AWS EC2 delete route space for route table ID of right, and then I say destination IPv6 CIDR block of :/0. Done. Let's take a look here. Refresh. This should disappear if I refresh. Disappear. Let's look at our pings. Our pings from VPC-B has stopped because there's no IPv6 route outbound. Okay, so we'll let that try pinging while we go back to the network diagram and understand what's going on. So now there's no V6 traffic here anymore. And I added this, but now I need to add a V6 default route for V6 traffic. So let's do that on our CLI. AWS EC2 create route table destination IPv6 block 00/0, gateway ID pointed to the gateway ID of this guy, my EIGW. Return is true. Let's take a look at here. If we say refresh, there it is. Default route for v6 traffic is pointing to the internet gateway. So now what's happening is we're pinging here, exiting here through the normal internet gateway, which has routes for v4 and v6, going out to the outside world, pinging the IPv6 address, and I don't have a way in because the v6, because the EIGW only allows egress v6 traffic, and the normal internet gateway does not have a v6 route. So therefore, my pings do not work. So let's go back into the CLI. Now, so B cannot ping A. So B cannot ping A, but can A ping B? So let's take a look. Can A ping B? So here's A. What is the address for VPC B? It's this guy. EC2 and VPC B is this guy. So if I say ping 6 from A to B, it could ping. Now why is that? Let's look at the network diagram. The reason why I can ping from A out to the internet into B is because the EIGW is a stateful construct. It's a stateful egress, although it only allows v6 traffic to exit the VPC. Because it's stateful, it knows, it keeps track of the source and destination IP, meaning that if I'm pinging from a known VPC solicited traffic out to my destination, the return path, the EIGW will allow the return packet because it's smart enough to know that. Now, because the reason why the EC2 from B can't go in is because the EIGW is probably seeing unsolicited traffic. It doesn't know that it originated from the same VPC as the EIGW, so therefore it doesn't allow the ping response. So that's how that works. And to also test, I'm going to ping a public DNS IP address here for Google. Why can't I ungroup this? Actually, let's just move this here. Okay, and then so let me just ping Google's public IP from A. Here's A. Ping 6. See, I'm also able to ping the DNS IPv6 address of the outside world because it's saying I'm getting a request out the egress gateway. It knows that the request is being sent from a known VPC, so the return traffic will be allowed. And so that's how that works. All right. So there you go. That's how the EIGW gets deployed. The whole environment gets deployed via the CLI. And so now let's go ahead and just delete everything that we've built, and let's do it right away. So first thing I want to do is shut down my instances, AWS EC2, delete instances, delete There was a name, there was a way to delete the EC2 instances. Oh, terminate instances, and then instance IDs. Okay, so do we have our instance IDs here? I got one. And just to cheat a little bit, to make things go a little faster, what was the first one? A2, and the second one was this one. Oh, shoot. Okay, so that's being shut down. Let's verify that real quick. Refresh. All states. Okay, shutting down. So that's good. So we got rid of that, and I can just delete this actually. And then now I can get rid of the Egress Internet Gateway on VPC-A. AWS EC2, delete Egress Internet Gateway. Egress Internet Gateway ID of Okay, that's done. Let's verify that. Internet Gateway, refresh. Egress only, nothing's there, perfect. Okay, so then what's next? So that's done. Let me just delete that. Security group. Let's go ahead and delete the security group. AWS EC2, delete. Security group. Group ID. Okay, that's done. Let's check. Security groups. Okay, refresh. Okay, so VPC-A security group is deleted. That's fine. I'll do the VPC-B on the console. So then that's good to go. And then now subnet. Let's delete the subnet. AWS EC2, delete subnet, and then subnet ID. Okay, so that must be done as well. Subnet, refresh, A should be gone, A is gone. Okay, so that's good to go. Get rid of that. Route table, AWS EC2, delete, route table ID. That's done. Refresh. Okay, no more VPC-B-RT1. That's good to go. Remove this. Deleting the internet gateway in VPC-A. AWS EC2, detach. Detach. Internet Gateway ID, VPC ID. Detach it from this VPC. Done. Let's verify. Internet Gateway, refresh. It is detached now, so let's delete it now. AWS EC2 delete Internet Gateway, and then the Internet Gateway ID. Okay, that's done. Sweet, refresh, done. Okay. And then so we'll get rid of that. VPC, let's get rid of the VPC. AWS EC2, delete VPC, VPC ID, and let's take a look at that. Go to VPCs, refresh. VPC-A is gone. Okay, so everything's gone for VPC-A. So for VPC-B, let's go ahead and delete it via the console. First thing here is the instance are shut down, key pair. Let's go ahead and get rid of the key pair. Let's do that from the command line interface. AWS EC2, delete key pair, key name, EC2 dash key pair. Okay, so that's probably done. Let's check. Let's check. All right, no more key pair, so that's good to go. And then EC2s are shut down. Security group, let's go ahead and get rid of the security group for VPC-B. It's down here. Security group, actions, delete, delete, refresh. Okay, so that's done. Subnet, we'll delete that. VPC, subnet, action, delete subnet. All right, refresh, that's good to go. Subnet's deleted. Get rid of the subnet. Oops, Control Z. All right, route table. Got to get rid of the route table on VPC-B. Easy enough. Click, action, delete. Type in delete. Done. Refresh. No route table. All right. Get rid of that. Internet Gateway. Detach. Detach from Internet Gateway and then delete. Done. Refresh. Done. All right. And what else? And that's done. Delete the VPC. Delete VPC. All right, everything's back to normal. Nothing is there anymore that I created, at least. And that's that. So there you have it, guys. That's how you create the environment here for our environment, VPC-A, all command line interface to create our resources. And then for VPC-B, did it with the console, which was faster, but the command line was more fun. And then we implemented the EIGW, tested the IPv6 ping functionality, and see how the EIGW treats IPv6 traffic. So that was good to go. And there you have it. All right, so I hope that helps you guys. I hope you guys learned something with the AWS CLI, and thank you for tuning in.